Hey y'all, this is Prima with the Prima Show. Have you ever been pregnant, had a child, a father who had a child on the way, and you had all these hopes and dreams and ideas of what you thought parenting was gonna be? Or have you ever bought a cake mix box and you said, hey, I have all the ingredients, I have the eggs, the milk, the butter, the water, the oil, or kind of like the movie The Gremlins when the guy went to the store and he thought he had this wonderful surprise gift, and when he got it home, it was something else. When you made the cake, the oven wasn't quite on the right temperature, or something wasn't just quite right, and what you got was a falling cake or a cupcake, or that little precious baby that you thought was going to be one thing didn't turn out just how you wanted it to? If so, stay tuned. I'll be back in a moment.
If you think you knew me, you didn't really know it all. I've been through my shared struggles and I'm still here standing tall. Never the type to fold, if I fall I wouldn't fear. I'm giving you all of me, this my blood, love and tears. If you think you knew me, you didn't really know it all. I've been through my shared struggles and I'm still here standing tall. Never the type to fold, if I fall I wouldn't fear. I'm giving you all of me, this my blood, love and tears.
Hey y'all, I am back. Tonight I'm going to discuss parenthood, parenting. I'm going to begin with, this is going to be kind of like a two-part series. Tonight I'm going to give my perspective on parenting, my experiences with parenting, me being parented, and me parenting. Also, next week you will hear from my lineage, my seed, on their experiences with me as a parent and what they felt. Yeah, me, a mom, single mom most of the time, raising sons. I'm going to start with my parents. My parents, they talked to us, they dialogued, they allowed me to talk, my sister and brother to talk. The values that they gave us, I felt like family was important to an extent. Work was important. God and going to church was important, and sometimes staying in relationships, staying with family, staying in marriage, even though they were not happy, yelling when you are upset, yelling when things weren't the way they wanted it to be, yelling when they wanted to be heard. We were given what some people would nowadays call corporal punishment. We were given whippings. Sometimes more than questions were asked, like investigating, which is one thing that I tried to do with my children. I do have my computer here, laptop, so y'all can chime in. I will, instead of typing tonight, I will probably be answering your questions as I see them come up. So please give your feedback, your questions, your comments so that I can respond. In my household, we had fun. We had fun lots of times. My dad, he worked a lot. He was tired. He spent lots of times in his bedroom. He went to church with us sometimes, the cookouts, picnics, mostly picnics for work. That he talked to us about sex education, school, friends. We were able to have friends. We were able to have friends in the neighborhood, friends at school, friends at church. I did learn that omitting information was what they thought was important and what they thought worked. My parents, and particularly my dad, made a lot of broken promises, and I learned that he had great intentions. And when I'm speaking about my dad, when I say dad, the dad that I grew up in the house with, he made a lot of promises and had good intentions, but eventually as a child, I began to learn that good intentions and broken promises began to feel like lies and untruths. I learned to be inconsistent. Inconsistent meaning do things only when it was convenient. So if we started a project, if we started an activity, if we started extracurricular activities, those things were put on the back burner if it was going to be an inconvenience to my parents' schedule, meaning if my dad had to work, if my dad was tired, if my dad had other things to do, then we were not allowed to complete activities that we started. My mom was one that was very big on family, dinner time. She entertained our family when our family came over. She entertained my dad's family when they came over. The priorities were different. There was clearly division between my parents when it came to priorities, when it came to the importance of structure, when it came to the importance of family time, God, church, and all that. So there was a difference. So I learned that it wasn't very, being on the same page wasn't important. It wasn't important. They parented the best that they knew how. And I'm sure they were just going through the moments from one moment to the next, doing the best they knew how, because based on their parenting, based on what they grew up in. And although some things they did different, like my dad was more of one who wanted to provide or give us the things that we wanted based on his childhood, because he didn't have certain things growing up, material things or shoes, certain things that he considered to be necessary or important. And my mom, for her, what was more important was a roof over our head, was structure, was making sure that we had lights, gas, food, and stability based on her childhood, where there was times that they did a lot of moving around, which did not make her feel safe and secure. So based on their parenting style, I became a parent that some things I tried to do different than my parents, some things I tried to do better, and some things I winded up doing the same. For me, growing up, the things that I said I wanted to do was to be transparent with my children. The importance of transparency is something that was at the top of my list. I had, I was pregnant, and, Dr. Spock, the book, about parenting and child rearing and all of that, you read the book, and I was a teen mom who I read in the book, about time out and, talking to your baby and singing to your baby, and you do all these wonderful things, and you believe that if you do ABC, that everything is going to turn out 1, 2, 3. What I later learned was that parenting is not always as easy as people think. I did learn, and what helped me be able to forgive my parents was that parenting does not come with an instruction book, a foolproof instruction book that tells you everything. And children are individuals, and with them being individuals, you treat each of them different. However, although you may try this and this and this, there is no guarantees. There's also no refund and no exchange. But for me, the importance of being understood and to understand my children and transparency were at the top of my list. I began to speak to my children when they were young, ask them to communicate with me. I asked my children to stay out of the hands of the law. I asked my children, I explained to them when it came time to things that they wanted to do. Can we go here? Can we go there? Can we do this? Can we do that? I would tell my children, we'll see, time will tell. And they would be like, well, Mom, why do you always say we'll see? Mom, why do you always say time will tell? I made it a priority not to lie to my children, not to make promises that I wasn't able to keep, because I experienced that with both of my fathers. Promises, good intentions, not always measuring up and not keeping their word. So for me, I began to formulate in my head what I've heard for so long, is that your word is your bond. Do what you say you're going to do. Don't say you're going to do something that you're not going to do. The other things that I wanted to do as a parent that I feel like I was successful at is telling my children, which was the same thing that was told to me, that, you should wait. Don't rush to be a parent. Don't rush to be an adult. You have your whole life ahead of you. Your job is to go to school. Your job is to complete your chores. Your job is to make good grades. Those were my children's jobs. I stress the importance of the golden rule. Treat people like you want to be treated. I wanted them to learn how to be independent and self-sufficient and to only need a woman for the purpose of intimacy and procreating. But I taught my children how to cook, how to clean. We sat down and we talked about bills. I explained to them the importance of being self-sufficient. We talked about sex education. I showed them every video that I could find that had absolutely nothing to do with sex ed, had nothing to do with sex or sexually transmitted diseases, but I showed them all of that. Growing up, I talked to my kids. I asked them to tell me if anyone had bothered them, anyone had touched them, if they didn't like something, to express what they did not like and what they did like. They were punished for mistreating each other, for taking advantage of each other. I wanted them to be young men that grew up to be men that were okay crying if they needed to cry. It was okay to say you don't like something if you don't like it. I wanted them to understand the importance of family and sharing, the importance of communicating, because no one can read your mind. And growing up, a lot of men around me did not communicate. They did not express how they felt. As they got older, I saw that in some of them. As little children, I thought it was going to be perfect. Like I had them dressed a certain way. I kept their hair cut. You know, they were studious. We could go to restaurants and everybody would say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you have 4 boys sitting here and they're so quiet and they're so well behaved." And I also taught my kids about telling the truth, the importance of telling the truth. I told my children that I will punish them or give them a whipping, corporal punishment, for lying before I did what they did. So if you broke the table, tell me you broke the table, and maybe if it was an accident and I didn't have to tell you about not being in here before, you might not get a whipping. However, if you lied to me about breaking the table, then you're surely going to get a whipping, and you're surely going to be on punishment or be punished because you lied. And that was based on my experiences with adults, and particularly men, that had lied to me for so much of my life. I took my children as they got to be preteen, adolescent, to a group called Overcomers, and they had, I was going to Healthy Adults or Adult Children. It was a group for adults that helped us to work through us being the adults that we are based on our childhood. And for my children, it was a group called Confident Kids, because I wanted them to learn the importance of expressing their feelings. Today I feel happy. Today I feel sad. Today I feel glad. Today I feel nervous. I feel angry. I feel anxious. Whatever those things may be, I wanted my children to be able to express those things. And for the most part, in dealing with them and other people in their life, and particularly females, I feel like my children do pretty well with that. I feel like with me reading the Bible with my children, with me stressing the importance of church, with me telling my children the importance of praying and manifesting, and that, you know, we are all God's children and God wants us to win. They can be all that they can be, that they can, if they just put their mind to it, they can accomplish anything. I did stress to my children that they didn't have to conform or be in a box or necessarily grow up to be this or that because that's what I may have wanted, or that's what your grandmother may have wanted, or what society wanted. I really did try to cultivate the gifts that my children had. As a single parent, I tried to expose them to sports. I had them in basketball. I had them in baseball. I was able to learn how to be an umpire, although it's hot outside, and I really, really don't like being outside when it's hot. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna be an umpire so I could still be involved with my children and everything that they had to do. So with that being the case, we had fun, we laughed. I found it important to have my children in the bed with me. I had a king size bed. We would sit and we would watch movies. We would talk, we would laugh. And parenting for me at one point was fun. It was hard. It was stressful at times. There were times that I could not wait for my children to go to bed at night. And because I had homework to do for all 4 of them, I had to provide for them. I had to teach them. I had to love them. I had to be the enforcer. I had to teach them life skills. And as they got older, I wasn't a man, of course, and I couldn't teach them how to be men. I couldn't teach them certain things. I could teach them how not to be like the men that I had grown up around, or I could teach them based on my hurt, on my disappointments, based on my expectations or experiences. But I wanted more for my children, and what I was determined to do in my head was to not have my children feel like they were in a single parent household as far as my time and the things that I could provide for them, because I had been taught to provide. I had been taught that you made your bed, you lay in it. I had been taught that those were my children and those were my responsibility. And at that point, I felt like really all that they had was me. So again, parenting was fun. Putting them to bed at night, back to that. There were times that I couldn't wait. Like I could have a heaviness, I could have stress, I could be hurting, I could be confused. As a mom, trying to get it right because you're maneuvering this parenting thing. I get them to bed. I'm listening to my music because music is very, very important to me. And once I got them to bed, there were many days that I went to bed and I cried and I was like, God, I don't know if I got it right today, or I don't, God, I know you say you won't put more on us than we can bear, but clearly I think this is a misfire. I think this was for my neighbor. This was not for Prima, because I can't handle all this. I have 4 sons and I'm trying to do homework. I'm trying to provide. I'm going to, I'm trying to instill certain values in my children. And it just seems like it is so hard. I felt very, very guilty when I got paid, and me doing something for myself was not a thought. It was just like every time I got paid, I was like, hey, I got 4 kids. This one, I might need to get more socks. I need to make sure they have plenty of food. I need to make sure I have plenty of cleaning items. I need to make sure, maybe I can get them this toy and I can get them that toy. And I remember this older lady telling me that, well, hey, baby girl, she's talking and she was like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, hey, I'm getting paid today. And when I get paid, I'm going to do this for my kids. And I'm going to take them here and I'm going to take them there and I'm going to take them here and I'm going to take them there. And she was like, well, what are you doing for yourself? And I was like, I'm not doing anything for myself. I'm going to do for my kids. I got to make sure, those are my kids. Those are my responsibilities. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I remember her saying, hey, if mama's not happy, nobody's going to be happy. And she said, every time you get paid, make sure you do something for yourself. She said, I don't care if you go buy you a cup of coffee. I didn't drink coffee then. I don't care if you go to a movie and sit by yourself. I don't care if you buy you a shirt, a pair of socks. Do something for yourself. You worked all week. You take care of your kids. You're responsible. Your kids are clean. Your kids are going to Christian school. You take them to church. You're teaching them this and that. However, you have to do something for you, and you deserve a reward. And eventually, although you feel like you should spend every moment with your children and you feel like your children are all that you have to find a way to get a break. You have to find a way to get away. Even if you have to pay someone to watch your children, you have to have some me time. And that was very hard from the beginning, taking time to myself. It was very hard spending money on myself because I had so many children that I had to juggle, and I wanted to make sure that they had just as much as any 2-parent household. Then it was guilt. I felt guilt because one, I wasn't with their dad anymore because he was in prison, in and out of prison. And with that being the case, I didn't know how to do that. And I had to learn how to do that. And that was a hard, hard lesson to learn. And eventually it got easier. With that, I'm going to take a break and I will be back in a moment. Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. And to Prima's own self, I'm going to be true. Although me being comfortable makes other people uncomfortable. And Just Prima is about me, my life, my ups, my downs, my trials, my triumphs. It's me being encouraging, empowering, and inspiring.
I will say anything, you don't know what will come out my mouth, so don't be surprised.
I am back. Another thing that was hard for me with my experiences with men, my experiences with men, period, men, my fathers, the guys that I had dated before, with the person, other people in my life, every other male figures in my life, I did not want to be a woman that scarred my children. I did not want to be so hard and so rigid and so rough that I was not relatable. I did not want to be all of those things, so much so that my children resented me and they didn't feel comfortable talking to me. I wanted to always have an open door policy with my children. We could talk about anything, please come to me, talk to me. So with that being the case, what I found challenging was me balancing parenting and my life, balancing life, balancing time with me and enough time for them. And because I was one person, it was very hard for me. Of course, I couldn't split myself in 3 different ways. I couldn't be in more than one place at a time. I was married, but I was single, married and a single parent. I was married to a man that was a professional inmate. How about that? A professional inmate would be a great way to explain my husband at the time. Because I didn't have my dad and he did not want me to take the children away from him, then them having a relationship with their dad was very important to me. I spent lots of money on collect calls so that he could speak to our children. I did many trips from prison to prison for our children to see their dad. Later, when things happened with my children and with myself, I wondered, because I grew up in church and they talk about spirits and spiritual things and, being careful about where you take your children, your ear gate, your eye gate, what you let your children see, what you let your children hear. I often wondered if, because I took my children to see their father in that environment, if that is why that wound up being their experience and my experience later, because I exposed them to the atmosphere of prison and men in prison going to see their father in prison. But that was a priority for me at the time. When their dad would call, I would collect calls for him to talk to each of them. And they didn't always want to talk to their dad. There were times that I accepted his collect call just to cuss him out. So he'll be like, hey, what's going on? What you think going on? Bills, dude, bills, kids, homework, food. Like, that's what's going on. Because I was so frustrated. I was so tired. I was so worn out, and me trying to juggle every hat for my children at the time. I had to be the mother. I had to be the nurturer. I had to be the enforcer. Like, I had to talk to my children about how to treat women and about hygiene. And women don't want a lazy man, and women don't want a man that's not clean. And it's important to make sure you carry yourself a certain way, and the way you speak to a woman, the way you approach the woman. I had to be the educator, the teacher, check homework, go back and forth to the schools, be the enforcer, meaning the punisher or the one to guide them along the way, and also be the provider. And it was just very hard, me being a female with 4 sons. I was very mindful of the people I had around my children, which were mainly family. That my children have never seen me in any compromising situation with men. Although I did a lot of things in the past, or I did a lot of things while I was raising my children, it was not necessary for my children to be exposed to men. It was not necessary for my children to be exposed to the hustling and the other things that I had going on in life. So I feel like I did a wonderful job with that, because listening to my children, they were not aware of a lot of that until they heard the show, which was great. When I was trying to figure out children, because I felt like I spoke English, I feel like I speak good English, plain English. And I feel like as much as I communicated with my kids, I did not understand why, as a woman, we're very, we can multitask, which means that you can tell me, hey, Prima, clean up the house. You're going to clean the living room, dining room, kitchen, and it's going to be done. With my sons, I have shown them since they were little how to put their clothes in the hamper, put your white clothes over here, put the towels and washcloths here, put the linen over here, or whatever, dark colored, whatever. And I taught them that. I taught them to put their shoes in the right place. And if you can match them, if you can see they were 2-3 years old, I taught them to put this in the right place. But I realized that I couldn't tell them a list. So for me not to beat the hell out of them and for me not to be drove crazy, I had, I spoke with a man after being turned down for help from my family, from the church, from the Big Brothers program. I read every book I could on how to be the best mom, raising sons, mother with sons, the son and mother relationship. Like I read all kind of books. I listened to Audible books because I wanted to be all that I can be. This gentleman at this club course, I paid for this course on how to mothers raising sons. And in that course, the one thing I got out of everything, I didn't get a whole lot out of it, but what worked for me, because like they say, eat the meat, throw away the bones. For me, what I took away from that is that I needed to, for my sons being males who need to accomplish one thing at a time, to stay focused, I began to write lists for them. I wrote list and list and list and list. And when it came time for them to do certain things, I was able to say, okay, y'all, we're going to do this and we're going to scratch it off. I learned it was important for me to show my children how to do things. Sometimes parents tell your kids to do things and we have expectations of our children, or there were expectations with us that we may not have been shown clearly how to do those things. So for me, it was important for me to tell, to show, to explain to my children what the expectations were so that there were no questions. And we began to check off the list. You did this? Okay, great. You did this? Great, great, great. And I can honestly say, I do feel like my children got that part. I feel like they clean and cook probably better than all of the women that they've been with thus far. I did show them how to cook basic things so they would not be hungry. And again, only have a woman in their life because they wanted her, not that they needed her. I told them that they didn't need any friends. The friends, they were each other's friends. So we were the party. And if other people came, I did tell them their family was important. So they had lots of cousins to come over and some friends. My house was the house that cousins, friends, they could come over and stay the whole spring break. They could come and stay for the summer, half of the summer. Because I had 4 kids, it was like if I could take 4, I could take 25. So that was how my children grew up. Our home was our sanctuary. Our home was a place, like I told them, that we get away from the outside world. So I didn't expect for things to come to our home. My circle was very small and still is. And there are not many people that come to my house or they have come to my house. And I stress the importance of that because I have to fight and provide and hustle and bustle outside, but when I come home, what's important is my children. What's important is for us to lay our head down, be safe. I express to them that I love them unconditionally. My kids have definitely my children have definitely caused most of the scars on my heart, so to speak. If your heart was a heart, although we know it's not shaped like that, if a heart was a heart that we could actually see, my heartbreak has mostly come from my children because relationships, men, and things that have happened in my life, those things I can recover because I can get another man, I can get another husband, I can get another, but children are me, they're a part of me. And I learned to I learned, I guess, kind of what we've been taught that God is. God is our Heavenly Father, and God is our parent, and God loves us, and we are God, and we're made in the image of God, and God has unconditional love for us, and God forgives us. What I did learn through parenting is that some things I've forgiven my kids before they've done it. I've forgiven my kids as they're doing it. I I I have I remember a lady when I was pregnant with my second son, and she was an older lady, and she asked me what was I having the second time, and I said, "Hey, I'm having a son," and she was like, "Oh Lord, God is preparing you for war, and you're gonna raise those boys on your knees." And being 17 years old, I didn't understand what she was saying. I was like, "Oh, what is she talking about?" The old lady talking about I'm gonna raise my sons on my knees, and I'm like, "What does that mean?" I began to later find out in Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. Love holds no count of. So I began to understand how much God loves me based on my experiences as a parent of 4 sons, as a single mom. It was not easy. Parenting for me, there are some parents out here that I've talked to, and, you know, whether they're telling the truth or not, I hear the stories. Oh, they have the perfect kids. Their kids did everything right. Parenting has been the most wonderful job in the whole world. And maybe they had a village to help them raise their children. And, they bought the Duncan Hines box, and their children turned out, just like that cake. It was perfect with the little sprinkles, and it was soft and fluffy, and it was wonderful. That has not been my experience thus far. I have had visions and dreams that my sons and I would do ministry together, and that's what I thought. I thought, oh, I'm this single parent. I was a teenage mom, and their dad went to prison. I went to Bible college, and me going to Bible college and giving my life to the Lord, and I do the youth ministry at 2 churches, and I'm talking to my kids, and we're praying, and we're reading the Bible together, and I have them playing baseball, basketball, Cub Scouts, tennis, swimming. I'm providing for them. They ain't going without nothing. I'm being a responsible mom, and I'm doing everything in my power to be all that I can be. Super mom, super woman, all that was expected of me. So I thought that was going to be the end of the story. Okay, Prima, that's the end of our ministry. That's wonderful. And life continued to unfold. And between molestation, between drugs and peer pressure, and sex and fights, and I guess me with boys, and things that I thought were not normal, things that I did not allow my children. I did not experience myself. And not that I was the perfect kid, because I learned that there is no perfect child. You have this wonderful plan when you're holding this baby in your arms. But I looked at my children sometimes, and I was like, hey, where the hell did they come from? These are not my kids. This is not what I raised. This was not part of the plan. Like, I thought this was the ministry part right here. Like, all this stuff right here that I had gotten through, not realizing that life would get harder. Not, dealing with juvenile, and dealing with, them taking the car to go here and hang out, or, having house parties at the house, or doing certain things that I heard from other people that was normal, things that I didn't do. Maybe some things that people around me had done, but not thinking it would be me. I remember being told, children are a blessing from God. And in my head, I'm like, question mark, question mark, question mark. I don't know. Train up a child in the way that they'll go, and when they're older, they won't depart. While I was going through with them, I'm like, hell, I didn't train them to do this, and I didn't show them to do that. So that's a lie. That scripture is a lie. I can't get a refund for them. I can't take them back to the store and trade them in. I got them. And like, when we go to some of the stores that tell us no refund, no exchange. That's what I learned in my parenting experiences. I love my children. I will go hard for them. I taught them about loyalty. I am loyal. I love my children unconditionally. I do not always like my children. There are some parents out here that say, oh, I love my children, I like my children. I'm going to say exactly what you want to say, and you may not be comfortable saying for the parents that aren't comfortable. But I don't always like my children. My children, I wonder sometimes where the heck did they come from? I did not raise them this way. I did not act like this with my parents. My parents probably thought that about me when I was disobedient, when I didn't always follow the rules, when I didn't do the things that they wanted me to do. And I began to realize that God only entrusted me with those children. And ultimately, they belong to the Creator. And it was something in me that those individuals needed to get for their journey in life. And I had a journey in life. And in my journey in life, I had to go my way. And this is all in it, and this is part of my story. And everything that they've done was part of their story. And I had to begin to pray that God give me peace with their choices. I have raised children on my knees. I have raised children with a broken heart. I have raised children with a lot of prayer, a lot of talking, a lot of conversation, a lot of repetition. I felt like church in particular, there are a lot of people that are hurt. There are a lot of people that's looking for answers, seeking answers. There are a lot of people that need encouragement and looking for guidance and a way to go. And unfortunately, my experience was if I wasn't in the clique, if I wasn't in the who's who. And also there were times that I felt like God was protecting my children at certain churches. So that's why my children wasn't able to get the mentorship that I wanted them to get. And I often wondered, you know, in the challenges that I went through with my children, that why is it that the parent that stays, the parent that is involved, why is it that that parent is the parent that get blamed? That's the parent that has to go to the teacher. That's the parent that has to stand in the neighborhood about whatever. You know, me being a mom with boys, there were times that I had arguments with people in the street, people in the neighborhood. Going up to the school, I was an advocate because they were me and they belonged to me and I belonged to them. So I did not always get it right, of course. I did not always make the right decisions, and not always saying that I always gave the right advice, because in your humanness and you being mama bear and you're trying to protect your kids, you know, or advocate for your kids, sometimes you handle things and later you find out that may not have been the best way to handle it. But I can say that I did raise my children with integrity and character and tried to instill that in them, instill certain values as far as education, you know, prioritizing education, the choices that they made in spouses. And there were times that I remember sitting with my children crying, you know, when they were mad at their dad for not being there, or wondering why they didn't have a dad, or, you know, them feeling some type of way because when it came to I remember them saying something like, Mom, how come every time we go to the baseball field, all we have is you, or the basketball court, one of them. And I was like, hey, that's all you got. Where there are other kids that have their dad, and there are other kids that have their uncles, or they have whatever there. And there was a period of time in my life that I had a brother that was present, that they looked up to. And unfortunately, he was incarcerated, and they were angry and upset about that because they felt like maybe he had let them down. And at one point, he was part of maybe the saving grace for them. Like, hey, you know, we have Uncle so and so and so. And then when he wasn't there, I know that they were disappointed. They were hurt. And because that brother was very, very close to me, I was heartbroken as well. And that was just another bump in the road for me. And with that, I'm going to take another break as I get ready to close in my last segment. But I'm going to take a break at the moment, and I will be right back.
Shakespeare. Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. And to Prima's own self, I'm going to be true. Although me being comfortable makes other people uncomfortable. And Just Prima is about me, my life, my ups, my downs, my trials, my triumphs. It's me being encouraging, empowering, and inspiring. I will say anything, you don't know what will come out my mouth, so don't be surprised.
All right, I am back. What I am going to wrap up with in this amount of time is saying that for me, parenting, and I'm sure for all parents, whether they admit it or not, parenting is on the job training. On the job training. There again is no foolproof formula to raising your kids and your kids turning out perfect or your kids turning out as your ideal. All the wonderful pictures and when you're playing with them and they're growing up, once they're outside of your womb, what you intended, what you thought, all your hopes and dreams, growing up happily ever after, graduation, marriage, military, the house on the hill, the grandkids, the perfect spouse, all of that is not guaranteed for all of us. I go to work and when I'm at work, if I'm trained to do a job and I do the job that I'm trained to do, I know that it's going to turn out like this and I'm going to get a paycheck. I'm going to do the job. Look, like one of our politicians, do the job that you were paid to do. When I do the job that I'm paid to do, I know that it's going to turn out this way and I know that I'm going to get a check. In raising children, that is not the case. You don't always do this and then they're going to turn out like that. That is a lie. There is no foolproof instruction manual that can guarantee, and it ain't no money back because it is no refund, no exchange. You do not always get back what you put in that tells you that your children will turn out perfect. I do believe in generational blessings and curses, and some people aren't familiar with that, but there are sins of the father that are visited. Sins of the father and mother, let me correct that because I've had that conversation with other people. Sins of the mothers and fathers of our ancestors. Certain things I do believe that are passed on to our children generation after generation. The Bible says to those that do not repent, that is who it's going to happen to. But I also believe in the universal laws that say you reap what you sow. Karma visits all of us. No one is exempt. So although we may not be aware of things that happened prior to us, it still visits our children, or visits me, and visits on and on and on. I have learned and experienced that I think the only job that's probably harder, close to hard, just as hard, is probably marriage, being in relationship with someone that's already raised, someone that has ideas, someone that has their habits and they're in their routine. So parenting is, that's next to parenting, but parenting is the hardest. I haven't always gotten back what I put in. I learned that my children are different. My children, although I have 6 sons and they may be raised with the same rules and the same priorities and the same structure, I saw it with my siblings because I didn't understand why, for the most part, our rules were the same with the 3 of the siblings that I grew up in the house with, but all of us still turned out different or took different pieces of what we were taught. And we probably all surprised our parents by our choices and by how we listened, how we didn't listen, what we did and what we didn't do. So I am not saying that I did not disappoint my parents at times, because I did. I'm not saying that my parents did not have hopes and dreams and ideas for me, because they did. And neither was I a perfect child. Parenting is a job that I will never get a frozen turkey. I won't get a gold pen. I'm not going to retire from parenting. Parenting is a death do us part job if you're a decent parent that chooses to stay in and be there for your children. Again, parenting is the job that it affects your heart. It is heartfelt. It costs a whole lot. It costs more than money. It costs you your time. It costs you your mental. It costs you your emotional. It costs you time on your knees. It costs you travel. I can't explain how much parenting has cost me. Parenting has made me smile. It's made me laugh. It's made me fuss. It's made me cuss. It's made me bust some bleep, bleep, bleep. Bust they butts and bust somebody else's butts. Parenting has cost me a lot. Parenting has amazed me. It has amazed me at the things that they've learned. It has amazed me at things that I have passed on to them, good and not so good. It has amazed me the things that their father has passed on to them through DNA, good and not good. And it has also amazed me that I can look at my children and be like heartbroken because I don't know where in the they come from. Like, bleep, 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 where did you come from? Where in the heck did you come from? I have also learned that from my children, I'm not going to always like their choices, just like my parents didn't always like my choices. You know, we try to be different than our parents. We try to be better than our parents. We try to, you know, like they say, we stand on the shoulders of those before us. And in trying to do all of that, in some ways, I have done a wonderful, outstanding job. In other ways, I didn't measure up to my own expectations. In other ways, I feel like I did not do enough. In other ways, I have wondered, you know, you wonder, what did I do enough, or what could I have done different? Or maybe I should have been a mom that stayed at home and didn't do this and didn't do that. And maybe I shouldn't have provided, or maybe I, you know, all the woulda, coulda, shoulda. You know, I've asked my children, you know, what could I have done different? Being a young mom was definitely more challenging than being a parent now. I have been a mom for almost 33 years. This month, I have been a mother 33 years. And like I said, it has been eventful. When people ask me, well, how is your life and what's going on? It's been very eventful. It's never a dull moment. I have something going on with all of my children at some point. All my children process things differently. I understand what my mama said when all three of us was different, because I have grown to understand that all of my children need something different. I had one child that was like my nemesis, and he would say he gave me the hardest time and broke my heart the most. I remember my grandmother saying, that's the one that you're going to raise on your knees. That's the one that I fought with physically with several people, and certain things were spoken over me. And he just has been more of an angry child. And I realized that a lot of things that we go through and we experience from the womb, it does carry over to our children. But I love him no less. I love him just as much as I love all of my children, and I don't want him to walk around with guilt or feel like he has broken my heart to the point that I don't forgive him. I forgave him as he was doing it, just like I forgave all the other ones. I'm a ride and die for my kids until the end. Like I said, I don't always like them or their choices, but I do always love them. And I will always encourage them. I've told my children I will always be their biggest cheerleader, and they can't do anything to make me not love them. I am, if they are not loyal and they do something and they are not their brother's keeper, I'm going to have a problem with that, and they know that. If anything happens to me, my older kids have been charged to take care of my younger children and instill the same things in them that I instilled in them. That's an expectation. That is what I expect from my children. I do expect my children to love each other, be there for each other, regardless. I tell my children I will not be here always. I look forward to having all of my children together. I pray that God allows me to live and they live long enough to live happily ever after for years and years and years to come. I have prayed that whatever choices, my children have definitely taught me how to pray. So in praying for them, praying that God keeps them and protect them, that God sends God's angels to always be with them, be that still small voice to speak to my children when I am not present. When I am able to be there for other people's children, no matter how old they are or how young they are, I got from my grandmothers that I will give to other people, because there will be a time that I may not be present with my children. I'm not with my children when they're in prison. I'm not with my children when they've gone to juvenile. I'm not with my children at school. I'm not with them to make sure that they always make the best choices, but I ask God to always be with my children and guide my children and lead my children and protect my children, because that is the hardest job in the whole world. I wouldn't trade them. Like I told them, if I could have done it different, I would have. If I could have chose them a different dad, I would have. If I knew better, I would have done better. If, church is big on talking about being equally yoked. And I think church, because I grew up in church, so I'm speaking from church, I think church does that scripture such a big disservice, because they'll tell you, be ye not unequally yoked with unbelievers. And what people need to understand, that it is more than just being with somebody that believes in God or believes in something greater than themselves. You need to be yoked. And I don't know if everyone knows what a yoke is like. And because I'm not able to do graphics like I want to tonight, a yoke is like a piece of wood that hooks on my neck and it hooks on whoever I'm yoked to. And being unequally yoked with somebody that does not believe in the things that you believe in, somebody that doesn't believe in education the way that you do, someone that doesn't believe in parenting the way that you do, someone that is not willing to sacrifice the way that you do, someone that would not grow old with you. Because if we're yoked together and I'm going in this direction and you're trying to go straight, we're going nowhere. And unfortunately, I had to learn that in life, learn it for myself. And that's something I told my children, and picking spouses and picking people to have children with and people to procreate with, it's important to be yoked with someone and ask the right questions. I wasn't taught to ask the right questions because no one taught my parents to ask the right questions. Nobody expressed the importance of that to my parents, which meant they didn't know how to do it with me. And I tried to do that with my children, and they didn't always get it right. But I pray that for my children and my grandchildren, that changes from this moment forward, that they make better choices, that they're mindful of the people that they bring in their life. They're mindful with who they procreate with. They're mindful who they let in their circle, because again, parenting is the hardest job. You don't get a do-over. You don't get a do-over. Like you just hope, put it in the box, shake it up, and hope that what you come out with is something good. I don't feel like I was a bad mother. I wish I could have been better. I wish I could have done more. I wish that I had chose different with my younger kids. My younger kids, I chose someone that was present, someone that was more present than the first dad. And not that we have all the same ideals and ideas, because we still have our challenges. But as an older parent, I'm a parent that's calmer. I'm a parent that I have learned what these kids are just different. My first kids was like Rugrats, baby kids. Like, if one gets suspended from school, the other ones be like, hey, I'm going to get suspended too, so I can be out of school too. Or those kids, my older kids, riding the bike in the pool, going joyriding. They was balls and balls of fun. Such a joy. Bless their hearts. These younger two are calmer kids. I'm a calmer mom. It's funny because my older kids say that I'm too soft on the young. Mom, you too soft on them, and they get to talk and express. I said, y'all got to talk and express too. But if it was us, Ma, you would have bust us, and you would have did this, and you would have did that. My younger kids say that I'm funny, that I don't take a whole lot, that I say whatever, because I am a mom that would say whatever. My older kids, I could talk to them and I could say, hey, y'all clean up the room and do this, so we could go out. And I could come back and it might not be done. And I may say it again nice and they may not hear it. For my children, I can't talk about nobody else's children, but with my older children, what I learned, that if I fussed and cussed and raised my voice and threatened to whoop somebody's butt, then it got stuff done. My younger children, I could just talk to them And it doesn't take all of that. And I don't know, or what I want to believe, part of it is because they had their mom and dad. And like I told my children, it is very important. I understand why God intended for it to be mom and dad, mother and father, because we balance each other out. Parents balance each other out, and understand the importance of the attributes of the mom and the attributes of the father, and it brings, you know, the balance that the children need. And unfortunately, that is not my story. That's not what happened for me. But there are a lot of parents out here that it did happen for. And because this is called Just Prima, this is about Just Prima in my life and my experiences. I hope that tonight helps someone. I hope that me being transparent and having, you know, conversations about my experiences as a parent and how I was parented in brief. Of course, I can't say but so much in an hour, that it motivates someone, that, you know, you don't feel like you're the worst parent, or you don't beat yourself up because you didn't always measure up. I do appreciate any feedback, any comments, any questions, any suggestions. I didn't really get any tonight. I see that my brother is watching, and my mother-in-law said that, you know, she gave me a compliment about me being a great mother. So I do want to acknowledge that, because I can't type at the moment. So thank you for that. Thank all of you for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Again, share. My book will follow this. There are some people that will be, you know, don't necessarily agree with everything I share on my show, and I am experiencing a lot of emotions, a lot of, you know, outside comments and feedback from people that know me in my personal life, because, you know, some are happy about the things that I'm sharing, and some are not so happy about the things that I'm sharing, and I can't do anything about that, because I'm being true and authentic to me. Next week, we will be back. And when we come back next week, we were trying to do it this week. When we come back next week, you will hear again from my children and some of my grandchildren. You will see pictures of them. Well, all pictures, you're not going to really see any current, but pictures of my children, my family, and hear from them, you know, because I'm speaking for myself and speaking about my experiences. But I would love for you to hear from my children, because, you know, I'm not trying to pretend like I was perfect, because I could tell you myself I was not. I want you to hear from them the type of parent I am. I want you to hear the type of grandmother I am. I want you to hear any big lessons that you've learned, the ups and downs, the challenges, and anything I ask, you know, I'm going to ask them, is there anything that they feel like I could have changed? There's a lot of things that they wish I would have changed. But if there was anything that I could have humanly changed, I'm going to have them to share those things as well. So again, thank you for tuning in. Please check me out every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube, Caribbean Life TV, and Just Pr1ma, and I look forward to seeing you soon. I am out.